looking through those lenses, Vancouver is very sophisticated on a global stage. So people come to Vancouver to do housing tours more so than people from Vancouver go to Dallas to do housing tours. So, and that really goes back. That goes back a long way. That goes back to Larry Beasley and the 90s and the whole Vancouverism movement.
You're listening to In the House with Jenny Woon and Toni Singh, your West Coast real estate agents, a personal and professional development podcast for the everyday working woman. Gain proven business building tools and actionable strategies to maximize profitability. Here's your host, Jenny and Toni.
Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Toni Singh.
Hello, I'm Jenny Woon.
And you're listening to In the House podcast. We have an amazing guest on today, super special person.
In person,
which was lovely. Daryl Simpson, partner at Magnum Projects. Jenny, what was your key takeaway from our interview with him?
Okay, we all know there's a housing shortage. I like how he confirmed that prices are not coming down.
Yeah.
When I get people walking through the displays, they are expecting a large discount. They're expecting, they're holding on and waiting. I don't see prices coming down, and I love how Daryl's able to confirm that because he works with multiple developers, obviously at Magnum, and just being so long at Bosa that he really understands the financials and the pro formas, and even working with all the trades. There's a shortage of talent out there. There's a shortage of materials and housing supply. So it's really good to hear him confirm that. Yeah, how about you?
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to have him on the podcast. I love how open he is about his opinions on things, for sure. And I would agree that, we've been in the industry a long time. I definitely don't think prices are going anywhere either. And it was nice to hear that confirmed from a fellow colleague / person in the industry.
I love the partnership with him and George Wong. It's going to be fantastic to see what's going to happen the next, decade or so.
Yeah, really excited for him
on this partnership and how the visionary and the sales teams all collaborate with this new partnership.
Yeah, really looking forward to see what's coming down the pipeline at Magnum Projects. So tune in, guys, and have a listen. I'm sure you'll be taking notes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In the House podcast. I'm your host, Toni Singh.
And I'm your co-host, Jenny Woon.
And we have a special guest today, Mr. Daryl Simpson, partner at Magnum Projects, in person in the studio today. Welcome, Daryl. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you in person.
Yeah, likewise.
So I'm going to briefly intro you, and then we're going to go into our first question. You have so much experience in the development and sales and marketing world. You've been in the industry since 1993. Is that right? Okay. You built a reputation, as a visionary, specialized in high-rise and luxury product expert. I would say yes. Okay. He's shaking his head, but I would say yes. At taking 50 towers from concept to completion while at Bosa Properties.
Yeah, I think it was like 40. Yeah.
It's 50.
No one's counting, but it's around 50.
So you have a plethora of knowledge, and we're going to be speaking to you today about the market in general and your position and vision for Magnum Projects.
Right.
So your superpower, the relentlessness pursuit of a better idea and a stronger strategy. Tell us more about this superpower and what inspires you daily.
Yeah, so when I joined the Magnum team earlier this year, and we were putting together a website, our marketing team said, "So what's your superpower?" I'm like, "Oh God, I don't know. I don't think I have one." But then I would, okay. So what makes me maybe a little bit different than a lot of people in similar positions, or I do like to kind of make it sometimes painful for our team to sort of rethink, recalibrate. Like, are we sure? Like, are you sure this is right? This, are we mailing it in? Not that we do, but we all do from time to time in our career. Like, I think that feels right. Okay, hold on. Really? Right? Yeah. Seeing it from a different perspective, trying to look at everything from the voice of the consumer, for the perspective of the consumer. Like, is this bullshit or does this make sense? Or is this because we see a lot of bullshit in our business. positioning decks from graphic designers and ad agencies and things like that. This is our target market. This is our, okay, hold on a second. So like what I would mean by that superpower comment is just taking a step back, taking as much time as you need to make the right decision and ensure that we're thinking about it from a 360-degree perspective, from the perspective primarily of the consumer. That make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Is that from mistakes that you've made in the past, and so you've gone in with more caution, or is that a personality trait that you've always had since you were born, for example, that you were a cautionary person and you wanted to see all angles?
That's interesting you say that, because so yeah, I mean, it's a product of making a lot of mistakes for sure. If friends of mine listen to this, they'll go, well, that's not Daryl. Daryl's like very spontaneous, very like, so I'm actually quite different in my non-work life. Like I'm very spontaneous, but at work, I tend to be a little bit different. I don't know why.
You're wearing a different hat, though, and there's other responsibilities probably there, too.
Yeah.
And it could be because you're dealing with millions of dollars as well.
Yeah. I think in our business, and I'm not speaking about Magnum specifically, but in the new home development, sales, marketing, design, and consulting business and construction business, there's a lot going on. It is very fast paced. So it's very easy to go, what do we need to do? Okay, click. Okay, we're going to go left. Go left. And often that results in really good things.
Yeah.
Like in the early days at Bosa, when there was like 12 of us in the company, and we had to do, everybody was wearing multiple hats, and we're all doing, we're doing everything all the time. You had to make decisions quickly. You had to just go. And so you'd make mistakes, right? You try to minimize them, but you'd invariably make mistakes. So what's my point? It's a very fast-paced business, and you have to be able to process information fairly quickly and make the right decision 85, 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Right? And so where you have the luxury of taking a little bit of time and rethinking it, you can usually, often you'll come up with a better idea. But there's times, this is one of the things that Colin Bosa taught me, which was how much time should you take to make a decision? Well, the answer to that question is you should take as much time as you possibly can until the amount of time starts to hurt you.
Yeah.
Right? So you gather as much information as you can until it's too much and it's too much time, right? So anyway, so that's sort of where that comes from.
So almost like the opportunity cost of waiting it out.
Yeah.
So share with us your career path and what keeps you staying in this industry.
So when I was younger, when you're a teenager, you're not sure really what you want. Well, some people know what they want to do. Maybe you guys knew from day one what
No.
No? Okay, right. So
I'm still growing up.
we had a family friend that was a realtor. I grew up sort of lower middle class area in Victoria, and we had a family friend who was a realtor. She drove a car that was, like significantly nicer than everybody else in the family group, in the friend group. Like, what does she do?
What's she doing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, she sells houses. What does that mean, right? So there was a period of time when I was younger, I thought, well, maybe I'd be a realtor. That's kind of interesting. And selling houses, yeah. Okay. And then I went to school. So I went to school for a couple of years in Victoria, and then I transferred out of school there, post-secondary, and then I came to BCIT. And when I was in BCIT, I thought I wanted to be in the advertising business, right? So I wanted to, remember the movie Big?
Yeah. Did that inspire you?
Kind of. I mean, like 80% of the people listening to this won't know what the hell Big is, right?
They're too young.
They're too young, right? Anyway, so the ad agency, the world of being in an ad agency, and I think I'm generally an ideas person. Sorry, I am overwhelmingly an ideas person. My brain's always working on a new idea. I thought I wanted to be in advertising. And so I decided in the last year of BCIT to change and go into the commercial real estate program. Because I also, at various times when I was younger, thought about being an architect because I like to sketch and I like sketch. I'm not a good artist by any means, but I like to I'm pretty good with spaces and spatial relationships and things like that. And I like interior design. So I thought I would maybe be an architect. So I kind of stumbled into this business because the world of project sales and marketing is really a mashup of those three things. Think about it. Wasn't conscious, But I think one of the reasons why I was successful early on is because I was able to exercise all those various parts of my brain and do those things that I thought I wanted as a career. Found a career that was a pretty good combination of all those
Yeah, it's a
things.
good balance.
Yeah.
So I have a larger question than this, but I'm just curious because you said that you're an ideas person and we would consider you a visionary. So when you have all of these ideas, though, no, it's not. It's the truth. Accept it. So when you have all these ideas, though, and they're flying through your mind, how are you implementing them properly with your team? Like, you know how sometimes there's a head of an organization, could be the CEO, where they're the visionary and they have the ideas, but how do those ideas actually transform into the plan?
Right.
What would set you up for success, I guess, if you're a visionary person?
Having great people around you that can tolerate that chaos.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been very lucky. Like, I've had awesome people to work with.
Okay.
Why my voice is so low and gravelly on this
I don't
microphone?
know.
Anyways, yeah, no, I've had great people to work with in my career. So first and foremost that, because if you don't have people around you that can deal with that chaos and that spontaneity, it's total chaos and it's a shit show, right?
Okay, so
yeah.
Yeah, no, that answers my question. That's awesome. How is Magnum positioned in our industry?
Well, we are a pillar in new home sales and marketing in Western Canada. And some years we're number one, some years we're number two in terms of market share. So George Wong and the team at Magnum that I'm now working with and partnering with, they've been a fixture in this business for a long, long time. How are we different? Well, one of the most significant ways I would say is the principal involvement in our deals. So this is today might be the 4-month anniversary of me officially entering the business. But George and I are present in a lot of meetings. So when we're having project meetings, whether we're, envisioning, ideating, strategizing, planning, or managing, we're in a lot of those meetings. We're not in every one of those meetings because we've got a really capable senior team of VPs that are managing portfolios and clients. But when we're onboarding projects and when we're at major sort of decision-making points and intervals in the project, we are present. And George has always been that way. So George has always been in the room. And that's when you have a $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 million project, our clients, and the principals of those firms, they want the most experienced people who've done it before at the table. And so, again, we've got a really great senior team who've been around in the business for, well over a decade. It's not a junior team, it's a senior team. But having George and I with them at the table, having done it dozens and dozens of times, and I guess maybe in my case, having been responsible for having to make the decisions that our clients are looking to us to counsel them on now, I think makes a big difference. So principal involvement in the day-to-day and the strategy, I think is a significant one. And, George and the team, but, George and his sister Lily and his collaborator for almost 30 years, Wilson, they're really sales-driven people. Like, it's not about necessarily making it prettier, although, we've made pretty things. It's not about making it prettier. It's about getting it sold and de-risking it for our client. Like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And I think project sales and marketing firms think of themselves as project marketing firms. But, maybe some of them are. I don't want to talk about our competitors, but we're a sales company. Our job is to de-risk deals, optimize revenue, and allow our developers to move on to the next deal and be profitable and employ people.
Absolutely.
That's our job. So,
So when you say number one, and because projects can overlap to the next quarter or to the next year, are you comparing it based on number of buildings or number of transactions or number of dollar volume? Okay.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, number of transactions or dollar volume. But so they may have, a competitor might have a few more launches in a year and able to do more volume than we're able to do. And the next year it might be the same for us. When I say number, I don't really like that. I'm not a very promotional person, but when I say number one, I mean, the largest, doing the most work, the broadest sort of portfolio in the city. And some years that's us. Some years that's, a competitor. But
For sure.
And are you guys on the island all the way? Like, what's the furthest west you'll take and the furthest east?
So right now, I mean, Magnum has done a handful of things in Victoria, and we have other things on the South Island, primarily with one client now, Reliance. They've got a phenomenal project over in Colwood, and we'll start on that next year. But, we're actively working on it now, getting presentation center, sales gallery, and ID, and all the collaterals together and ready to launch that sometime next year. So Victoria, we've, all throughout Metro Vancouver, we are about to launch something in Calgary next week, actually. I can't say a whole lot about it, but that's going to be pretty interesting for an existing blue chip client. And we have been, I wouldn't say we've been asked by our clients, but we've clients have solicited in the past whether we'd be interested in following them to other markets, and certainly we are. So if a good client of ours wants to do something in Toronto or in Calgary or in other markets, we want to service that client. So we don't want to see somebody else take that business. So we'd probably work hard to help them there.
Your role at Bosa Properties, what made you make that move? And what's the most significant lesson you learned at that time as a VP? And how are you applying that knowledge and experience to now Magnum?
That's like a huge question.
Three-parter.
I'm going to break it apart.
down.
Why did you move? I guess, were you retired or like already?
No. So I knew that I would never retire because my burn rate's too high. And I couldn't live the life that I wanted to live for me and my wife and our family for the next 30 or 40 years. Really, truthfully. No, but I wanted life change. Like when I made the decision to leave, I just turned 50. My daughter was just about to move out of the house to go to college. COVID was a thing. And I think like a lot of people, I thought, I think there should be more. And as, as good as it was and as rewarding as it was for 23 years, I'm not sure that I wanted to work for another 10 years exactly that way.
Right.
And I hope that doesn't sound critical, because it's not. There's lots of what I loved there, and I love those people. But I should love work more. Like, I was so lucky to love work for a long time. Like, I love going to work. I'd spring out of bed in the morning, and I'd love going to work. And when that stopped, or when that started to wane, I was like, I want more joy in my life. And I want to have more balance, and I want to see my kids a little bit more. And
It's fair to ask.
So, anyways, so that's what sort of drove the decision. And truthfully, when I decided to leave, I didn't exactly know what I wanted. But one of the things I wanted is I wanted to have ownership, like real ownership in the value that I'm helping to create. So that was important.
And was starting your own sales and marketing company an option before considering Magnum?
Yeah, 100%. I was really fortunate because I know a fair number of people in town and have a lot of friends and colleagues and collaborators in the business who I had coffee and lunch with and breakfast with over, almost over like a year and a half. And so I was able to kind of take stock of where our industry was at, where some of our now Magnum competitors are at in their business, how Magnum was perceived and how our competitors are perceived and valued by their clients. So I was in a pretty unique position to get a really accurate, non-sanitized view of the business because people just shared with me. So I did think about that. I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And then I thought, well, there's opportunities to work with existing firms, and there's an opportunity to start something from scratch on my own. The idea of starting something from scratch on my own was certainly very attractive, for sure. But I figured that it was, I'm not sure I'd be as good as I'm not sure I would be as good as a lone wolf as I would be as a collaborator or as a partner.
Right.
And fortunately, I've known George Wong. I've known him for 30 years, 25, 30 years, and he was kind of looking for the same. So he's built an incredible business over 30-ish years, got an incredible team around him, but he was also looking for an additional sort of collaborator. And not business partner necessarily in the financial sense, but a collaborator and a spiritual partner. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Anyway, somebody to talk through things and who'd been, maybe, you'd have to ask him that.
Partner.
I don't put words in his mouth, but I know the idea of having somebody to sit down and talk through things with at a high level in the business and for our clients was something that he wanted to. So I figured it would be fun to take a wheel and a machine that's performing very well and see if we can polish it and and get it going even faster. So, so far so good.
Yeah, and so being in the business as long as you have, in what ways have the real estate industry and business changed, specifically in the new home development? I mean, there's tons, but what would you say is the most significant or the most recent?
On the development side of the business or on the sales and marketing side of the business?
Sales and marketing.
Well, I mean, to contrast it with 1993. In 1993, there were a lot. There's been a movement towards in-house teams.
Yeah.
From brokerages such as we are. I mean, we are essentially a brokerage. There's been a move to in-house teams, and I don't think that's slowing down. Like most of our clients, the overwhelming majority of our clients have some internal sales or marketing talent or counsel. That doesn't mean they have the teams necessarily to launch a $500 million project. Well, they do. They have teams that could do it, but they may not have done it before or multiple times. So that's where 1 + 1 is sort of 3. They have an internal team. They supplement it or buttress it with the Magnum team, and it's a win. So the movement to having in-house talent on the sales and marketing side is definitely a thing. It's been gaining steam. And I think that'll always continue to be that way because, first of all, they're very big bets that our clients are making, right? They're very big calculated bets that they're making. Development companies are more interested now in investing in their own brands than they were certainly 5 or 10 years ago. The brand, brand power is important in a somewhat embattled industry like new home developments because everyone wants to not like developers. And so developers are taking it upon themselves, as they should, to tell their own story. So you get a lot of in-house marketing talent that's helping them shape that out. What else is going on? Well, certainly like realtor co-op percentages. What I mean by that is the percentage of homes sold in a new home project with the assistance of co-op outside realtors has gone from, I'm going to say it was less than 50%, maybe 30, 40, 50% in 93 to 98% now, depending on the offering, right? So, so the value and not the cost, the value and the role that a co-op broker plays in our business is obviously incredibly important. So that's changed a lot.
If they're bringing in-house sales teams, the developer, does that mean that less of your sales teams are being employed? Or
yeah, it's not so much that they're bringing sales teams in-house, but they're bringing sales talent and oversight in-house. So we might work with a developer that's got a sales director that's interfacing. They are the membrane in some cases, or between ourselves and the finance department, for example, in their organization. So they may not be equipped to launch a project and have a team of 20 people on it. Right. They may not have done that before, but they may have done a couple of smaller projects, and they dealing with MLS, dealing with our contracts, dealing with conveyance and admin and all those other really important pieces. That's often where they play. But some of our clients have the ability and experience to do it themselves. They may not just have the bandwidth at that period at that point in time, right?
So it sounds like a synergistic collaboration.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope so. You'd have to ask them.
I'm sure it is. So to shift the conversation just for a minute, we were talking a bit about developers, your main client base. What is keeping developers up at night?
Lots of things, I suspect. It depends where they're at with their projects. But if you're a developer that's got a project approved and entitled, and you're waiting to bring it to market, it's getting boring to talk about. Sorry, it's not boring for me to talk about. It's getting boring to hear. But okay, construction costs are not going anywhere, and most people think they're. Yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere. And I have lots of relationships and friendships with with people who know a lot and are very active in the construction business, as you guys know. And there were a lot of developers that felt this time last year that we were sort of through this crazy period and construction prices were going to start to come down a bit and the pro formas would start to make sense. That didn't happen in the last year. Like construction prices did not come down really at all. And I think the anxiety going forward now is a year from now, where are they going to be? Are they going to be lower? I don't know. I think in a region like this where and I've said this before many times, in a region like this, we're not really capable of building 30,000 new housing units a year. Maybe it's 32, whatever, but we're not really capable of actually executing on the supply that we need. Mm-hmm. Whenever there's projects that need to get built, all those contractors just bump up their prices. And so there's some very real sort of infrastructure issues in the construction business in the Lower Mainland. Well, you could probably argue across Canada, I suspect, but in the Lower Mainland, we don't have enough drywallers, we don't have enough iron workers, mm-hmm. we don't have enough painters, we don't have enough of those trades to be able to satisfy the demand. So construction prices aren't going anywhere. So that's one of the things that's keeping developers up at night. The other is cost of capital right now. Like that, for quite a while, it was, of course, interest on a construction loan is a significant mm-hmm. line item in any pro forma, but it's more significant now. Mm-hmm. And banks are, for the most part, consolidating. So, what I mean by that is, the Schedule A banks, they have a book of business amongst a small handful of blue chip developer clients, and they really like that. And when you get into tier 2 and tier 3 and whatever the hell that means, but when you get into smaller, less experienced developers, it's not easy to get projects financed now. So, mm-hmm. And there's no telling what pre-sale percentages might be a year from now. Like maybe it's not 60% or 65%, or maybe it's significantly more than that. So that's a real challenge.
Going back to construction cost, obviously there's minimum wage and there's lack of inventory, lack of supply of material being built. Where are the costs being cut? Like, is it cutting corners on design, or maybe there's not as many bells and whistles going into the homes?
I don't know if that's happening. I think the consumer in this market demands a certain level of quality that they're used as of yet not willing to compromise on. Like, I haven't really seen that. So that being said, like, you have to buy a really cheap tap or a sink to make a dent in construction. Like, so where do you save? You save in parking ratio. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what parking stalls are worth today. Like, it seems like it changes every week, but like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 to build a parking stall. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Certainly downtown, maybe even more. Mm-hmm. So getting parking ratios down, huge win. Like, those are massive wins. Glazing systems, massive win. Mm-hmm. Efficiency in the tower, building less concrete and having a structure that goes up faster, huge win. There's very little you can in a tower that's going to cost you $300 million to build. It's really difficult to make any marginal impact with interior specifications. Yeah, maybe amenity areas in that too, but there's a bit of an arms race going on with that in the consumer's mind too, right? Everybody wants a pool now or whatever.
I'm seeing it impact potentially, well, it already has, but even in the future, the land value sales, right? For where the developers are putting that into their pro forma. They'd want it probably at more of a steal, right? To offset the costs of increasing labor, increasing materials.
Land prices don't come down. I mean, of course, they come down every once in a while. Yeah. But development land prices don't come down very often. It does happen. Like, you get these spot sales here and there where you've got a distressed vendor. They don't want to tell everybody they want to unload their site. So it's an off-market deal. Those deals do get done, but you don't see, well, it's not to say that we never will, but there have been very few times in my career where land prices have adjusted significantly for any noticeable period of time. Like, it usually happens very quick and it's very spotty. So anyway.
The fixes, or what they think there is going to fix the issue of supply and demand with the foreign buyer ban, any policies governed by the federal and provincial government. I call it, I guess, Band-Aids. They're trying to fix something that is not really the right fix. What are your thoughts on what they're trying to do with introducing all these policies, but it really is not actually solving the problem?
Well, first of all, I'm not a fan of the foreign buyer ban. And people that might be listening to this would say, well, of course you're not, because you're in the business of selling condos. So I get that. But I don't know, it just feels kind of wrong to me. I think the way Australia does it makes sense, right? So you can buy if you're a foreigner, but you have to buy new. And you've got to stimulate construction and create jobs and all those sort of things. Now, that's kind of pushing and pulling to the argument I made earlier about not having the construction infrastructure to be able to meet that demand. But inviting people into our country to invest in our country in certain ways, I think, is an entirely positive thing. Telling people they can't, I think, is a negative thing. And I would err on the side of having less government intervention in housing policy, not more. You think about the rent controls, and we effectively have rent controls here. It's not like New York, but it's it's not inconceivable that we're going there. I think a residential landlord's inability to cover or even partially cover dramatically increased costs is going to result in a greater problem.
Yeah.
So when a developer is selling a 500-unit tower, and in the past, 50, 60, maybe 70% of those would go to investors, those investors are putting those units into the rental pool. If you're a developer today and you need to sell that 500-unit tower and you have fewer investors that want to buy it, there's fewer rental units that will get built. And what we've decided, I guess, as a society is we're better off to not care about that and incentivize developers and organizations like BC Housing to solve the problem. And so I fundamentally disagree with that because I don't think government can solve that problem. I think we need more of a freer market, and we need, I say this all the time too, we need more carrots and less sticks. And the idea of making it harder for people to do things tends to not work very well, I don't think, in a macro problem like this.
And going macro and outside our country, how does our new home industry compare to other countries? Like, who are we trying to echo or emulate as an ideal city to go up against?
You mean in terms of who's doing the highest quality work?
I guess
side of the business, or
scaling, meeting the demands of the population, traffic control, transportation, community build up, and
I'm not an urban planner, so that's maybe above my pay grade.
Okay.
I don't know, but
you would probably have a better landscape, like an idea than us.
From a design, product, style, packaging, i.e. sales, marketing and execution, i.e. sales, looking through those lenses, Vancouver is very sophisticated on a global stage. So people come to Vancouver to do housing tours more so than people from Vancouver go to Dallas to do housing tours. So, and that really goes back a long way. That goes back to Larry Beasley and the 90s and the whole Vancouverism movement. So I think not that we compete on a global stage, but we compare very favorably on a global stage with the quality of work that we do here. That being said, strong housing markets breed complacency. And so there was a lot of same done in the last few years too, right? So there's notable outliers like that, like a lot of the product we did at Bosa Properties. So like Bosa Properties, I'd like to think was distinctive. West Bank obviously pushes things. It's a whole other story. Yeah, but so there's some great work done in our region, but there's a lot of highly commoditized stuff that's the same as the project across the street too. But from a style, design, packaging standpoint, I think we stand up pretty well. And I was mentioning this to someone before, that I think a large part of the aesthetic and the expectation of the consumer we have in the market today is as a result of people coming from other parts of the world and exerting their influence here.
Like architects and...
Yeah, but even like appliance selections. Like,
okay.
You never saw Siemens appliances before, Gaggenau appliances before. You had a lot of international people come to the city and expecting things that they would get in Hong Kong or in London or Right?
So, Daryl, what is the lesson learned post-COVID that would be related to new home and development sales?
What's the lesson learned post-COVID? This is like an hour. This is like an hour-long discussion, I think.
Two.
Okay. So I think that people will value space and substance more than style. So, and I think I don't know, I think you're seeing this in some of the higher priced markets in the region. I think more people would rather pay $1,250 a square foot for 1,500 square feet than $1,500 a square foot for something that's 1,250 square feet. Do you know what I mean?
So we're talking about utility and practicality.
Yeah, not utilitarian. I know that's not what you meant, but I think people would rather have a little bit more room to breathe in something that's elegant and beautiful and respectable and they're proud to drive up to, and less of an architectural handstand. I think.
Right.
I absolutely believe that.
I mean, we're noticing that with clients too.
Yeah, a little more pragmatism, I think.
I would also think it's more cost effective to build as well.
100%. And so then that gets passed along in the end price, right? So you can afford to deliver something that's, well, you can't do much for $1,250 a square foot in Metro Vancouver anymore. But yeah, a little more graceful, a little more simple, a little more utilitarian, and give people more internal value and utility in their suite versus something that's going to win an architectural award, I think.
Okay, so that's what you mean by substance.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. What are your current projects that you're working on right now, and what are you planning to launch for the rest of the year?
Well, as I said earlier, we're going to do something in Calgary here in the next couple of weeks. We've got a handful of projects coming in Burnaby and Metrotown in the next 2 or 3 quarters. Something big in South Island next year. We have, 2 large projects downtown that could come to market at any time in the next 12 to 24 months. And sort of everything in between. We have some things in this area, East Vancouver. There's a lot of projects that are waiting on not on the sidelines, but like patiently waiting for the economics to work and to come to market. So there's actually, we have a supply problem and everyone's sick of hearing about it, but we have a supply problem. Part of that problem is driven by municipalities' inability to approve things, but it's also impacted by the economics of real estate development right now. There's lots of projects that are approved that could come to market where they are electing not to because the numbers just simply don't make sense. So construction prices need to come off a bit. Interest rates need to modulate a bit. And revenues need to, I was going to say stabilize, but that's not true. Revenues need to grow a bit. And developers need a little more certainty over financing, structure, pre-sale requirements, things like that, to be able to sort of push. So there's a lot of projects waiting to come to market for all those planets to align. So
that makes sense. This is kind of a 3-part question-ish. Where do you think new home buyers, investors, and recreational property buyers should be purchasing at this moment?
So all classes of buyers.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
So where do I think recreational property buyers should buy? Well, they should buy at a project called Base Camp up near Desolation Sound.
There you go.
Well, it's interesting. You certainly, that is one of the, going back to your earlier question, like that's one of the byproducts of COVID. People want to be able to get out and stretch their legs and stretch their arms and breathe deeply again, or whatever.
That's why right by the waterfront, right? The like Howe Sound, is that where it is?
Base Camp?
Yeah, Base Camp.
Yeah, it's up near Desolation Sound, just past Powell River. But people want, whether it's there, Gulf Islands, the interior, whatever, like people want room to roam now in a way that they didn't before, right? That's for sure an outcome of COVID. So where is that? I mean, recreational property is such a personal thing, right? Are you a mountain person? You a lake person? You an ocean person? You a wilderness person? Like, I don't know. All I would say is that, so this is going to sound totally promotional. Recreational property isn't going down in value, I don't think.
No, but that's just true.
It's like more people want it and it's harder to get it.
Yeah, they don't want to have to rely on taking planes anywhere again either, right?
that's
To
true.
get out of the city.
Yeah,
And are you finding they're Vancouverites, like they live in the Lower Mainland and they're owning that property as their second property, or are they actually moving there full time?
Are you talking about this base camp thing?
Or just any recreational?
recreational,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people want an outpost. I don't know. Although I think there's more people that are, obviously there's more people that are prepared to live off grid and work on grid. Like, you can get a Elon Musk Starlink satellite and get 150 meg speed in the middle of nowhere as long as you got power. So I think that opens up a lot of things for people. So I think there's more people doing that, depending on where work from home and where flexible work sort of culture goes. I think, and I suspect that that's not going anywhere. That's here to stay. Maybe it'll retreat a little bit. But
I guess what then if you were not investing in recreational property, but you're an investor who's wanting, like in Metro Vancouver, you can't purchase something.
It could be anywhere in
net
Canada.
negative.
It could be
anywhere in
anywhere.
Canada.
Yeah.
Where would you think would be a great market to invest in for that purpose?
so I'm going to answer your question by not really answering it.
Okay.
Depends what your motivation is, right? Like, I think a lot of investors, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but a lot of investors in new home, urban multifamily are buying maybe to rent it out and maybe to sell it. And if you're buying something to sell it or to flip it or to speculate on the value, which I believe is always a component. I think most people buying in Metro Vancouver are thinking about what the value is going to be in 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? But you should always be thinking about what you're going to be able to rent it out for. So it depends on your motivation.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's hard. It has gotten harder and harder to justify a real estate investment in Metro Vancouver in the new home market if you're looking at cash flow. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have justified decisions to buy backed up by the expectation and belief that it's going to go up in value. And so then what I would also say is, and as I've said I feel like for 20 years, never bet against the medium to long-term value of the Metro Vancouver housing economy.
Yeah.
Short term, you could get it wrong. I'm not saying you get it wrong now, but there's times when you could get it wrong. The reality is, I've said this before and others have said it many times, with where land is at, where construction prices are at, developers really can't afford to bring product to market at less than what it's available for today.
Exactly.
You might be able to find a deal here or there, but developers can't bring a tower to market at $1,200 a square foot in Brentwood or Metrotown. Like, it just won't happen. They'll just elect to not do it. And so then we just exacerbate that undersupply condition, and then prices go up again, right? So I think at a time like we're at now, there's as a result of the interest rate changes earlier in the month, some people maybe push back from the table a little bit, taking a wait-and-see approach. What I believe is the longer people do that and the more that happens, the greater the increase in values next year. So.
Since we didn't really get a hard answer for investor and recreational property, I'm going to reposition this question to ask.
I'm trying to dodge you. Sorry.
No. And I think it's a very fair. Let's just say your daughter who just went to university, right? She just moved out. Has she bought her first place yet?
No.
Okay.
She moved home for the summer, thankfully, but she'll be moving back. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to reposition this question. If she was a first-time home buyer, where should she buy?
And she wants to live in it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she's an owner-occupier?
Yeah.
What's right for her life?
No, we answer it the same way, though. It's true. And what's within budget?
Yeah, that's true. That's a realtor question.
Are you do you want me to say White Rock or Victoria?
That would only make sense if it was for investor.
White Rock, is that right? Is White Rock a good deal now?
White Rock's actually expensive, but there are places in the Fraser Valley that are net positive. Yeah.
White Rock's expensive?
Are they?
I feel like White Rock's...
No, it is expensive.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're buying a condo in White Rock today, what would you pay for a new, nice condo, concrete, with a partial water view? $1,100 a foot? $1,200 a foot?
$1,200.
I would say.
Okay.
So cheaper than Burnaby for sure.
Okay, so that shouldn't be cheaper than Burnaby, should it? It's beautiful out there.
No, I know. It's really nice.
It's I think that's
Different
the other
market.
thing that's happened in the last 10, 15 years is the way I would value a site And the value I would place on a specific geographic location is very different than somebody who's new to the country being here. They'd be like, whoa, yeah, anyway. So it used to be that Vancouver was, a certain price, and then East Vancouver was 7% less, and then Burnaby was 7% less than that, and then New West was 5% less than that, and then you went across the bridge to Surrey and it was 10% less.
Yeah, you can't apply the same.
You can't apply it. It's all blown apart, right? So, I'm totally, I don't know, where should I,
it's not
would
a
I
trick
recommend
question.
my daughter buy as close to me as possible?
See, that's the right answer.
We saw two different markets between 2022 to 2023.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to happen? Not talking about price per square foot or construction costs, but even more just volume. What's going to happen for the rest of the year, you think?
In pre-sale.
Well, there's back to 22, that 12, 18-month period of time, but when the market lit on fire again, I've never seen a market, I'm sure it's the same for you, that was as white hot as that ever. Wow. So there were projects that sold, very, very quickly to people who probably don't know what they bought. Anyway, the market was white hot, right? And so coming off of that, it's slower, understandably so. I think, in my experience, when you have periods of time that are hot like that, you get a cooling off period. And you get a response to that, and people sort of push themselves back from the table. They're full, and then they come back and have dessert or whatever. That's just me. So I think there's a lot of buyers. There's a lot of buyers in Metro Vancouver that want to be taking action and doing things, but are taking a wait and see approach. Right. And interest rates, Bank of Canada announcements certainly are have a factor or play a role in that. I think it's going to be a little spotty. Like good developers with great offerings, marketed and sold by great companies, blah, blah, blah. Good offerings in relatively undersupplied markets will continue to do well throughout the balance of the year. And I believe that the market will be doing very well sort of a year from now. And I think until that time, it'll be maybe a little bit choppy. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It's good.
Just slower than the hot market.
I think there's going to be fewer developers that have the conviction to go because there's those uncertainties around costs and things that we talked about earlier haven't fully been figured out. And so that'll cause some developers to be a little more conservative and then therefore not go. The ones that do go, I think will do well.
Yeah.
I think you kind of answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyhow for our listeners. What can agents tell their clients who are waiting for a deal or a major price adjustment in the pre-sale market?
I said this like twice today in meetings already. Who you buy from is almost more important than what you buy. Or like the developer that you're buying from, the offering you're buying is almost more important than what it is you're buying, your floor plan, your view, your price. Of course, there's lots of times when that's not the case. But so it's my long way of saying, if there is a deal to be had in the new home market in the next 6 months, and I don't think there's a lot of deals to be had, but if there are deals to be had, just look at that deal relative to the other projects that are maybe a slightly higher price, and who you're buying from is more important than what you buy often.
Yeah.
So where there's discounts, there's often reasons.
So wise. So Daryl, we normally round out our episodes.
Are we done already?
Yeah. You want to keep
You're
going?
having too much fun with us.
Proudest moment in your career?
Wow. I can't answer that. I had so many. I don't know. Well, I automatically think of Bosa time because Magnum is early. But I'll park that a second. I mean, I would say it's 4 months ago. Like, getting into business for myself, but not really with a majority partner in George, but having something that I can call partially my own has been really fantastic. But there were a lot of moments in my Bosa career that were fantastic. Like some of the architectural talent we got to work with, like some of the best talent in the world. Norman Foster. Meeting with Norman Foster on the rooftop of Jameson House and taking him through the building that they worked on and getting along with him. And maybe he thinks I'm an idiot. I don't know. But I thought it went pretty well. But spending time with people like that was pretty rewarding. Yeah. Anyways, we did lots of things like that were great. But I would say as much as all of the sum total of the victories that we had at Bosa were great and fulfilling and really rewarding, as much as I miss a number of those things, doing something on my own is great.
3 words that best describe you.
Oh, God. Well, spontaneous. I would say empathetic. And this is going to sound completely ridiculous because I just said empathetic, but I am a little selfish too. I can be selfish. So I hope my wife and kids listen long enough in this podcast to hear me say that.
Just fast forward to the end.
Like selfish in like self-care, like making sure that you have your fun first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have way too many hobbies. Like I have...
I think you cycle and you ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, dirt bikes, jet skis, side-by-sides, snowmobiles. Started a band.
Oh, I did watch you.
Where?
At UDI's event.
Sorry, where? It's the only place I've ever played. Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
No, you guys are really
there.
good.
Yep.
I saw it online.
Oh,
Yeah.
we were online.
You didn't know you were on social media, yeah.
Well, we must have like a 10
It was
second
good
clip.
though. It was good.
Okay. Anyway, well, that's
I was there for the whole thing.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay.
I'm a little selfish with my time, I think, but anyway,
I mean, that's probably also what makes you great at what you do, though. You need that.
maybe.
Yeah. What is the latest technology or trend that you think should be built or installed in every home moving forward?
I feel like I'm a fairly low-tech person, so I don't think I have a very good answer to that. But what would I value? I would value, like in an urban environment, cleaner air, pure water, things like that.
Okay.
Air scrubbers and water filtration systems and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were putting together the offering for 1515, we leaned into that. So all the HVAC systems have long before anybody else did this. It was like 3 or 4 years ago that we did that. But, we're scrubbing the air. Pre-COVID, we didn't even know. But air scrubbers and things like that, and filtration systems and HVAC, making sure all the water is filtered in the home, not just the water you drink, but the water you shower in and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So,
That'll be better for the hair.
yeah.
That's a beautiful site. What percentage is that building sold?
You'd have to ask them because that's not something under my direction, but it's gone really well. It's gone really well.
Yeah.
I mean, at a challenging time for ultra luxury globally, and an additionally challenging time for ultra luxury locally, it's gone pretty well. Like they're under construction, they hit their pre-sales, and
Which I think confirms what you say. It's all about reputation, credibility, branding, and branding positioning.
yeah, I think the product's pretty good. We spent the Bosa team spent a lot of time, which I was an integral part. We spent a lot of time on the product, so I think the offering. Have you been through this?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
What's your favorite tool or gadget that you can't live without under $1,000?
Nothing other than my phone. I don't really have any other pickleball racket. Play
Fun.
pickleball
That's
now
good.
twice a
Big.
week.
That's a good
So
one.
Yeah, yeah.
nerdy.
No, it's actually the next
It's
thing.
so nerdy. You look around, you're like, really? Am I one of these people? You're like, yeah, I'm one of those people.
Yeah. Final question. Where can our listeners find you?
Daryl at magnumprojects.ca.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn now. I spend way more time on LinkedIn. I never really had to do, or didn't feel the need to do that before.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm available there.
Yeah, we commented. We said we had a marketing episode and said LinkedIn is underutilized. Everybody needs to be on LinkedIn.
Although I find so when I spend, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes a day on that now, a couple minutes in the morning, in the afternoon, maybe before I go to bed or after dinner. And I feel like it's the same people posting the same sort of stuff. Like it's kind of hard to stand out there. So I don't know. I won't name names, but there's people, on our side of the business that are like, they're always on there. And it's like, is anybody really listening? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Maybe
You got to connect, make more connections then to expand.
Well, we really appreciate you coming into studio today. We know how busy you are. So great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to see you too. Congratulations on all your success.
Thanks, Daryl.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you liked what you heard today, you can support our podcast by following us on Instagram at In the House Podcast, leaving us Apple and Spotify podcast ratings and reviews, preferably 5 stars for us. Thank you. And following us on Amazon Music and subscribing to our YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
We hope this has been helpful. Our intention is to unite the industry's most powerful, top-performing women, empower women with aspiring stories, and provide you with tools and actionable strategies so you can apply it to your personal and professional life. Let us know your thoughts. Give us some feedback. We want to connect with you and hear about your journey. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. Until next time.